This is a demo of the different options available for in-car computer LCDs. These are, they're a little bit different than your standard off-the-shelf. Like, let's say you were to walk into, say, a Best Buy. Typically, those are generally lower resolution screens, and typically they don't have the clean bezels and stuff that these do. So you got buttons everywhere, and typically you'll have like this much more on the bezel with all the buttons down here on the bottom. And that can be a distraction if you're using these, at least the way I use them. These are not intended as like in-dash, which I know a lot of people like to go that route. These actually I typically mount on my windshield. I like to mount it similar to how you would your GPS or your cell phone, so it's right in the line of sight. I find that to be a big safety thing. I've never had a safety issue with these. Even while using the computer, even doing the big concern I always had was, what if a deer runs out while I'm distracted? And honestly, I've had that happen 3 times now, and every time I have safely stopped my car, even whilst using one of these screens in the window. So the first option I have is a unit that I custom built. So up until just a year or so ago, you could not get what these are. So this was not a product that was, well, I guess there were 1 or 2 manufacturers, but they were extremely expensive. They were $1,000. It wasn't practical. So the only real practical thing I could do was order the LCD panels and electronics from a supplier in China and just build my own, which, as you can see, this is kind of a rough, this is the best quality one I've ever done. This is the closest thing to a commercial product. This is probably tougher than a commercial product. Like, I'm squeezing it now. It's solid. It's actually a good, from what I can tell, this particular unit is actually a good bit better quality than the first commercial one that I built as far as physical strength of the unit. Sorry, I think I have a little cold going on here. And this is, the big thing with this is that it's a 1280 by 800 resolution LCD panel. Up until very recently, the best you could get in stores was 1024 by 600, and usually they weren't even that. Usually they were going to be 800 by 480, and again, that was going to be on a big, ugly LCD panel that wasn't this clean bezel. It would have buttons and extra plastic and all kinds of crap. So definitely, this is a capability improvement. 1280 by 800 is kind of the minimal. I know some people say 1024 by 600, but realistically, for a PC, I find that 1280 by 800 widescreen res is, especially on this small of an LCD, is kind of perfect. So let me see if I can turn this on here. And these power off of your standard 12-volt wall adapter. So if you have, oh yeah, here's a good view on the back. So again, I built this one myself. You can obviously see it's a very rough. I used a very rough plastic, and then I used a lot of glues on it. It's just the quickest, easiest way. Maybe at some point I might try going with like a 3D printer, but for now, this is kind of what I'm working with. So we plug this in, and this particular unit has HDMI, DVI, and VGA, although the way I use the glues and stuff on here to add extra strength, I don't think I can actually use the VGA port. So let's plug an HDMI cable into here. Dang it. Okay. Let's see if this will give us. Okay, so there we go. So that gives you a. Let me see if I can. So I'll just give you kind of a. Fortunately, let me see if I can do this. Turn my light down a little here so I don't have. There we go. I guess it's a little better. It's not great, but it's better. So, giving you a. So yeah, as you can see with Windows 10, it's a very functional resolution. It's not super high, but it's not so low that you have, drag bars and stuff everywhere. It's just right. And this actually is showing the screen to be brighter than it actually is. In actual daylight, this is a hard to see monitor. You can usually position it properly so that it's not too big of a deal. I actually find the poor viewing angles and dim screen. And unfortunately, these don't have because these are very rough and I don't have the ability to manufacture electronics, I don't have the ability to control the brightness either, so that's one downside. But this particular screen is the right brightness for use at both night and day, and it's hard to see from angles. So, for example, somebody coming up beside me in another vehicle is going to have trouble seeing what's on that screen. This is a 5.6 inch 1280 by 800 LCD panel. So that's the exact dimensions. So the other thing I did with this is this unit has a ball joint mounted on the back. So let me unplug this. I guess I can leave it plugged in. And oops, keep moving that. So it plugs in like that. Let's see if I can do this. This cable that's on here is oops, wrong direction. Did I do that wrong? Oh, gosh darn it. As you can see, let's do this. Let's pull that cable off. This is actually kind of cool. This is a low-profile DVI cable that I built specifically for this monitor that goes in here. I'm demoing with the HDMI just because it's easier to do at the moment, but I've had some issues with loose HDMI cables, with the ports seem to be somewhat fragile when used in this environment. It seems like every couple of months I'm damaging cables and ports and stuff. So I found that if I get a monitor that has the right connections for it, I'm finding that DVI tends to be a better option just as far as ruggedness is concerned. Okay, so let's tighten this. This monitor, actually, I'm no longer using as an in-car monitor also. It used to be in a slightly different enclosure. This is the first enclosure I've done that's actually reasonably high quality. Okay, let's see if I can get this. This particular mount is a low-quality mount, though, unfortunately. Normally, I use higher quality RAM mounts, but this particular mount, I happen to have it on hand, and so I used it. But this monitor is actually, I'm no longer using this as my in-car setup. This is actually I figured I had the panel laying around, so what the heck, I might as well just build something with it. This is kind of just an all-purpose mini monitor that I built myself for basically whatever the heck I want to use it for. Primarily like PC demos, when I'm demoing computers, stuff like that. Some people that buy these machines from me that buy computers from me might start seeing this as my demo monitor. So there you go. That has it has adjustability. It's a little looser than I'd like, but when I tighten it down all the way, it's tight enough that it stays in place. But it does have some movability here. So that's the first one, and that's a panel. The actual assembled unit is something that I bought several years ago. Or I'm sorry, the actual assembled unit here that you see here is something I did just like last week. But the panel, the LCD panel itself, is something I've had in my possession for many, many, many years. That's why it's kind of a little beat up. And you've got these dark spots on the panel. It's literally been in my car, hot, cold, falling off the windshield, stuff like that, literally for 5 years. So this was kind of my first attempt, and I think I've modified this unit probably 5 different times. It's very time-consuming work to do, to custom fab it, so I don't like doing it if I don't have to. Okay, so that's the first one. That's our 5.6 inch. So then, let's go take a look at the next option. Pull that out, just get that out of the way here. So the next option I have is the one I've been using. This one is I'll turn my light back on here. This one is a 7-inch 1280 by 800 LCD. I originally thought 7-inch was too big, but then I started seeing these enclosures for 7-inch that I think they're more designed for Raspberry Pi type stuff, but I started realizing these are clean enough and they're small enough I could mount it in the window, and I actually did, and it's actually the perfect size. It's exactly the right size. I would actually say, if anyone's looking, if you can find one with a clean enclosure like this, with clean bezels that isn't huge and distracting, I would say this is the perfect size. This particular unit has just HDMI. I could have a cutout there. This case was supposed to fit the unit, but it didn't, and so I kind of had to hack it up to modify it. But this one does only have HDMI, so you're a little more limited on port connectivity on this one, but it is what it is. I mean, we don't really need more than HDMI. So, this one, the specs are generally the same, but there's a few advantages. This one, I did do a RAM mount ball joint on it, which is a substantially higher quality unit than I don't even know what the other one was. I think it was just a generic mount that I had for one of my cell phones. Let me pull this up. Okay, so this one, stay. Dang it. Sorry, guys. I don't really have the camera mount setups to do this properly. Okay, so that's that one, and that one suction cups to the window. So let me pull up Windows again. There should be, oops, and I did it backwards. There we go. Okay. So, and there should be, even on this little camera, there should be a noticeable difference in quality. Okay, so the first thing, this one's a little more complicated plugging in the power. It's not that bad, but it is a little bit worse just because... Let me set the camera down here for just a second. I'll keep talking, though. So this one, because all the ports and stuff are recessed up in the unit, it makes it a little harder to connect the ports. But it works. It takes a second. Okay, so... There we go. Okay, so you can clearly see overall, it is a better quality panel. It's better viewing angles. The sizing is just right. It's brighter. It's just an overall better item. And it usually I have it, this is kind of upside down compared to how I normally have it. But it's perfect. I really dig this 7-inch form factor. I think I've looked at a few sizes, and honestly, after playing around with all of them, I think 7-inch is probably going to be my go-to size for this particular application. So then, let me pull this one out. So the very last unit I have is something, and the last unit I'm going to do an actual full-on review as in-car monitors, because it's probably more what people are going to buy when they go to buy these. So this is something new. These just started hitting the market. So this is actually a product. It says 4K on it. It's kind of deceiving when it says that 4K. What that actually is the panel is actually really quite impressive. It's a 1920 by 1080 panel. It really is. It's like a cell phone screen. It's literally 1920 1080, which is amazing on a screen like this. But what that 4K is it's pass-through. So these have the ability to feed, to display a 1080p, but then feed your full 4K through. So let's say you're using this. These are actually intended as DSLR monitors. So for people that shoot video with their digital SLRs, I'm kind of just adapting it for this purpose. But it gives you the ability to run an HDMI into it, display at 1080p, and then pass the 4K resolution signal out to your big monitor, your TV, or whatever you're using, or your production monitor, whatever, that kind of thing, and display at full 4K while displaying 1080p on this. But obviously that is not what I'm using it for. So this has same standard 12-volt input. And I did build a ball joint on the back on this one as well for the RAM mount. And with our HDMI input, show what we got here. So, and yeah, this is an actual. Let me see if I can. This is not working the way I want, guys. Okay, there we go. And turn my handy light there off. Okay, so I think it has the scaling turned up real high. Let me see here. Yeah, it has the scaling turned up to 150%. Okay, so that gives you an idea. So when you see how small that is, you can tell that's actually 1080p resolution. Very high quality product. This one is it's by a company called Feelworld. They were a little outfit out of China, Korea, or something like that, and they were the first ones to really start making these. And these are as good in many cases as very, very expensive competing products. These are kind of taking the world of this product by storm. This is the product to buy if you're on a budget, and it's almost as good as the better ones. But anyway, so this kind of gives you an overview of kind of some of the available options. Again, you could do like in-dash setups and stuff with these, but my real intention for these is to mount them on the windshield, again, similar to how you would mount your like a Garmin unit or your cell phone or something like that. And again, this particular unit is very similar size to a large phablet, like a Galaxy Note 9, something like that. Very similar size to this product. This particular unit, I think, is a Feelworld F570, and it uses a 5.5-inch 1080p 1920 1080 resolution panel. In any case, I hope people find this interesting. Again, this one I'm going to do a full review on once I actually start. I've never used this in the car, so I don't really have any feedback on this one, but we'll see how it works. I think I'll probably end up using the 7-inch as my main go-to, but we'll see how this one works. I do have one other unit that I'm working on that is not here. Just before I found out I could get this product, somebody in China figured out how to interface cell phone LCDs with HDMI. So you can now go get a ultra high resolution. The one that everyone's pushing right now is 2560 1440 with an HDMI input, and it literally is. It's for those of us that are total pixel hogs. It's an amazing looking panel. It's about the same size as this one right here as far as the actual panel, but it's a 2560 by 1440 resolution unit. That one I will eventually get around to manufacturing and putting something up, but it's smaller, it's thinner, it's more fragile, and it's going to be a little bit more complicated to do the producing on that one. But anyway, I hope everybody finds this informative, and thanks for watching the video.